Hello, it's Duncan. Faced with tests that are running too slowly to give us fast feedback, and discovering that we can't make those tests any faster, what do? The simple answer is not to run those tests. A better answer is not to run those tests unless they're going to give us information. In our test-driven development cycle, we would ideally run only those tests that are affected in some way by whatever change we've just made, the ones that could now fail. Unfortunately, our test runners don't have access to that information, but our build system does. If we can break our build into different subprojects, then Gradle will take care of running tests only in projects that have changed, or that depend on those projects. So today we're going to look at how to partition our monolithic Gradle build into a multi-project build.
And call it, what? Well, if you don't know, call it banana. So, the story so far, our test suite takes, well, with a build in total 2.7 seconds just now. The test process takes 2.1 seconds. The actual tests, well, that takes only 1 second, but almost all of that second is taken up by our DBItems tests here. Even though we're running lots of other tests in parallel with it, you can see them here, it is taking basically the entire test time. And to cut a long story short, almost all of the time, this gap here and this gap here are Duke classes loading. There's a nice discussion of that here on GitHub for Duke, if you want to see the details. But the fundamentals here are that if we do anything with Duke, we've got quite a long startup time. Not Spring Boot slow startup times, but irritatingly slow startup times if we want quick feedback on our tests, or we have an audience that doesn't want to watch a progress bar work its way across the screen. Now then, here's our DBItems class, and if we look for references to that, you'll see that it's used in its own tests and in our app here, but this constructor for our app is only used in production. When we run our unit tests, we use this constructor, and here, for example, you'll see we use in-memory items. So our DBItems implements items, and our items is implemented by in-memory items here. And in-memory items is really fast, and we know, or at least we believe, that it has the same behavior as DBItems because we have tests that show that it does. That's our items contract. So we run this items contract test against both the in-memory items and the DBItems implementations. So for our test suite here at least, the only time we actually need to run the DBItems test is if we've actually changed the implementation of DBItems, or something it depends on. Unfortunately, the test runner isn't that smart. If you tell it to run all the tests in a module, it runs all the tests in a module. Gradle, though, is a bit smarter. At the module level, if nothing has changed, it won't build it or run the tests. So if we were able to move DBItems out into a different module, then we get the behavior that we want. That we could do a build, but it would only run the DBItems tests if DBItems itself had changed. And if it doesn't run the DBItems tests, it won't reference DBItems, and then we won't have this large class loading here. And then we could pull the same sort of stunt with some of our other tests. We can move the browser tests out into their own module. We could use some of our experiments around parsing JSON into their own module and so on. So that those tests won't be run when we run our tests as part of the TDD cycle. And so we'll get nice quick feedback. So my mission today is to split my Gradle build up into at least 2 modules. From the one module that we have at the moment, and the module is sort of defined by a build.gradle.kts. Here's our one. And that's at the same level then as our source directory. So this source directory and this build.gradle basically define a module. Which is to say, I suppose, that our top level directory here is a single Gradle module. So how do we make room for another module? Well, the easiest thing to do, I think, is to push our current module down one. I'm going to create a new directory here, and I'm going to call this, well, for want of a better name, I'm going to call it app. So it's going to be our application module. There it is. And now I could push my entire build down by taking this settings.gradle and this build.gradle.kts and the source. So we'll take the things that define a module and move it into app. And we don't want to search for references, just a plain file move. And now, oh yes, there you are. IntelliJ has seen that change and it's done some Gradle-y things. That's good, I suppose. Let's see what we've got left. So this is now our app. And I suppose if we go to the console, we might say that from the top level, we could change down into app and then build as we did before, except that our Gradle would be up one. So it'll be up to Gradle W and then clean test. See if that works. Oh, no, it doesn't. Why not? You can see now we have a problem with our libraries because they're defined in this libs versions toml here. Now, I suppose we could just pull those down. Let's just see whether that works. So I'm just going to move that into there. copy it turned out. Let's not add those to Git. And now we see whether we have a separate build down there. Okay, good. We haven't actually split our build then. We just moved the module that we had down one. But we don't want to do that, so I'm going to undo the move. You probably can't see that. And now we're going to take this settings.gradle here, and we're going to move it back up into the root, because the settings.gradle file that defines a multi-module build. So we move that up here. Good. And now you can see that the bold has gone from here and here to tell us that this isn't really a module anymore, but we can make it a module by referencing it in the top level settings.gradle. So here we can say, and this is settings.gradle, not settings.gradle.kts. I can't remember the difference, but we say something like include, and we tell it that there is a project at app. If we save that, IntelliJ notices there's a change. App now becomes bold to tell us that it is a module. And I think now that our references, the ones in the TOML file, will be resolved at the top level. So if we go back here, we say up one into our root. Now we should be able to say /gradle w clean test. And actually I'm going to stop that. And I'm going to say ---- console equals plain, so we can see what's going on. And now you can see we have this subproject. So we're running app clean, app, all the things are now in app. But it's successful, brilliant. So we now have a single module, multi-module build, if that makes sense. Interestingly, we seem to have gained this versions.properties. I don't think I did that. Oh, but something else did. I suppose that's all right. But that does let us take a look at the other things that are at the top level that we might want to move down. Now, when we run tests and so on, the working directory is the root of the module. So things like this stock.tsv that we might be reading, and this Google API key that we also might be reading, and I think this packages.png that we're writing, those I think we want to move up into app. Like that. And at the top level then we should just have things about this build, and I think we probably get rid of this one. So now the things at the top level here, this Gradle file, complete with its libs, this editor config, git ignore, Java version, our requirements and so on, are things that apply to all of our modules, either literally or conceptually, and the things under app apply only in here. Now if I try and run my tests from the run configurations, they are broken because we've moved the module. That's a shame. We might be able to fix them up though, because there are some we saved. Here they are. Let's see whether we can fix them up here. Something odd. Well, I've ended up creating a new version of that, but we can run all through there now. Now, I suspect there are browser tests and really all will be broken, but we can fix those when we need them. Okay, so this looks like a good place to check in. I would point out that our artifacts are now moved down a level. So our app.jar is moved into app build. So if we have a continuous delivery server, we're going to have to update that configuration somewhere. But apart from that, let's see what our changes are. Well, we've got a truckload of changes here. Let's see whether we can view them by module. Well, that's a bit helpful. Okay, so 6 files have changed, and we've moved lots and lots of files from the top level down into gildedrose.app. I think that's sort of what we expect, except for this 600 odd versioned files. What's in there? Aha, our class files from the build. So that suggests that here we need to take app build, say git, and to git ignore. And that's now there. At some point we might use a pattern to solve that problem, but for now at least that will have tidied this up. Let's go through these changes. I do want that run configuration, so we'll add that to VCS. That deletion I want to commit. That and those moves. Ah yes, I do want to add those as well, don't I? So we'll add all those to VCS. So add those back in. In fact, we want to commit all those changes, I think. And this is going to be move all source down into a new app module. Commit that. And hope that no imports are actually optimized, because nothing really there should have changed. But we want to be sure, so again we'll go to the command line and we'll say clean test. And now clean test is applying to our app module. And working, I hope. Good. Okay then, now we have room to add another module. So we could create a new directory in here and call it, what? Well, if you don't know, call it banana. And now we've got banana, we can include banana as a Gradle module. Things happen, banana turns bold, but it doesn't have a build.gradle.kts file in it. So let's see what happens if we try and build everything. The app is being built, but nothing in Banana, I guess because there are no instructions. So let's take some instructions. Let's take these ones, copy them, and put them into Banana. Let's add that. Now if we build, you can see that Gradle is now building Banana, and it's finding that it doesn't really have anything to do because there is no source. So it's successful, which is good, I suppose. If we want to split our build, we want to gradually move things from app into Banana. Now what do we want to move? Well, I suppose the answer was this DBItems, but we can't have circular dependencies between our Gradle modules. So we can't have DBItems in Banana, items in app, but reference then DBItems from app, because that would be a circular dependency. And we can't have circular dependencies because Gradle won't know what to build first. So now we have to make a decision. Do we want a module, this Banana, that has our database and pretty much all of our domain model? So items depends on stock list depends on item and priced item and so on. So all of our low-level things would have to move into Banana. But then when we're working on those, we will be running the test for DBItems. That's not great, is it? But we can solve the problem with 3 modules. So what we'd have is a low-level thing of our domain model. We'd have a layer above that for DBItems, and then we'd have a layer above that for app. That sounds like it's plausible, in which case we should be able to rename this as a module to be Gilded Rose domain. So we'll do that first. And we'll check that settings.gradle got updated, and it didn't. There we go. Oh, in fact, it didn't rename this either. Deary me. Let's rename that to be domain and see how things pan out. Something odd has happened there because this now has that name, but this doesn't have that big name there. I'm just going to see what happens if I undo renaming the module. Cannot undo. So this is the reason that we committed everything. Let's go back to our commit. Let's roll everything back. And now we should be back in a good state. And now we can say, do the same thing again with the knowledge of what we wanted to call this, which is domain. So there's our domain. Go to our settings, say our settings wants to reference, and we'll do these in the order from bottom to top. So we say this is domain, and now take our build.gradle.ats and copy it into domain. Add that. Good. Delete the old Banana. And now what we want to do is move some of the code from our app into our domain. So what's our lowest level? Well, let's have a look. We've got source main Java, and in fact we've got a domain package here. So it's got ID and item and non-blank string. In fact those look perfect. So let's start with those. Move this up here. Can't really see both things at once, never mind. Okay, so we'll start with domain. We'll say we want a new directory, and this is going to be source main Kotlin. We won't make the mistake of calling it Java like we did up there. And now let's take this directory and move it down into there. Okay, so lots of things will go wrong, but let's refactor that anyway. Oh dear, it didn't bring the rest of the package name with it. So let's undo that. And this time I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these so they're built in both places. I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to change this view so that we don't flatten. And I'm also going to say don't compact the middle packages, so now we can see all of that stuff. Okay, so it's com Gilded Rose domain. So in here we're going to say new package com Gilded Rose domain. And let's copy these in and see whether we can get them building in the other place. So we're going to put them in there. And add them to Git. Okay, does that build? Well, apparently it does. And if we look in the build directory for domain, we have got classes, Kotlin, we've got class files, that's good. And the fact that these are built means that we know they're a self-consistent set of classes. In other words, they didn't require anything from the rest of this Gradle module here, which is good and suggests that our packaging was also right, that this domain here didn't depend on anything else in this project. While we're there then, let's do the same for any tests of those things. So let's go to Java, com, and interestingly there's no test of our domain classes. Why is that? Well, I'm not sure I have any good reason for that, especially as this was TDD, but because this is TDD it suggests that everything was tested by things around it. Okay, so we don't have a test to move. I'll just fold that away. What we do want to do though is to now delete these from our app. So now I know they can build separately. I can delete here, knowing that that will break this project. So if I build now, app should say, what on earth is item? There we go. But now item is defined in domain. We need to tell app that it has a dependency on the project. And the project that it has a dependency on is an implementation dependency. And then in here we have a reference to the project. So we get that like that, and we say inside here it is our domain project. Let's see whether that builds. Once Gradle has imported things. Good. Oh, but that's unexpected. What does it mean? The error says smartcast to local date is impossible because sell by date is a public API property declared in another module. So what that's saying is that item sell by date, we can see it, is a local date question mark. And here in item type, we are referencing that. We're checking that it's not null here, but the compiler is now saying that's in a completely different module. I can't really guarantee that even though you checked it's null here, it won't be null here. Within a module, it seems to trust us, I guess because it assumes we're the same author, but between modules it doesn't. That's a bit of a pain, but I think we can probably solve it by moving this item type as well. Where's that? Item type is an updating, as is stock. Well, those also seem to me like fundamentals of our domain. So I don't think I'd be embarrassed to say, let's take updating and move it into gilded rows here. See how that does for us. And now we're seeing the sort of problems we get, which is that our code base gets entangled with things in one package talking things in another package without necessarily a great deal of discipline. I think maybe I'm just going to refactor anyway on that one. And now we know we can't build, and that's because we've moved stock, but stock requires items. It might be that we're doing this the wrong way round, that we should move everything over and then only some things back. But I think I'm going to try failing forwards by undoing that move, finding the issue that I did have, which was there, fix it for now with a double bang there, see whether that gets us going. And when it builds, let's see if it passes the tests. And it does, good. So let's lock that in with create domain module and move domain package into it. More unversioned files, and these are another build directory. So let's go into our git ignore and say that maybe anything called build wants to be ignored. How's that? Does the job. Commit that. Good. Now one thing we can do to keep ourselves honest is to cut down our domain build.gradle.kts. So in our domain, I don't think we want to know about Flyway or Duke. Versions and task info maybe. We do want Java and we do want Kotlin on JVM. But we shouldn't care anything about databases. So that's that. Should we care about HTTP for K? I think domain probably shouldn't. So let's experimentally take those away as well. Jackson. Well, again, let's assume that we shouldn't depend on it until we do. Postgres and Hikari, no. Duke, no. Kotlin XHTML is rendering, no. But probably we do care about JUnit. So let's leave those in. I don't think we should be using Playwright. I don't think we should be using HTTPK's testing libraries if we're not using HTTPK. And then down here, we don't want to be talking to the Duke generator. We do want the Java LangChain. We probably do want context receivers. We don't care about Flyway, and we don't care about Duke. No to Flyway, no to Duke generate. And we'll check that still builds on the command line to keep us honest. Okay, that's good. There was one warning there. Flashed up the screen. Aha! The Kotlin Gradle plugin was loaded multiple times in different subprojects. That's a problem. And then app Flyway migrate was skipping an unloadable jar file. Well, I hope that's not a problem. Don't understand it. It feels like it might come back to bite me. But for now, let's try doing what this says, which is to add the Kotlin plugin to the common parent project, then remove it in the subprojects. Okay, so the common parent project is this, and here's where it's declaring the plugins. So maybe if we go and take this build.kts and say that we want that in there, does that work? Build only alias plugin identifier libs is a valid version catalog. Sigh. Let's do that by hand without the version, I think, which is Kotlin JVM. Oh, that doesn't work because this isn't a KTS file, is that right? Let's ask the AI. Add Kotlin plugin with apply false. Plugin for JVM. Nothing. Continue in chat. Ah dear. Restart IntelliJ. Try again. Okay, that will do it, except that we now know we need Gradle, libs version. What are we using? We're using Kotlin 2.0.21. So let's take that, move it into here, get rid of that, and see whether it fixes our build. Well, one of our messages has gone away. Good. And we can run all our tests. Good. I think we might commit that as an amend on the last one, as we were only really fixing issues that we had. So let's do that. And in fact, thinking about it, I think now we've specified the version here in our build.gradle KTS in our different places here. Instead of aliasing this version, we should really be saying Kotlin JVM and therefore getting the version from the root settings. And the same is true here. We obviously have quite a bit of work to do to pull out what's common and what's different between these builds. But I think I'll remind myself that Kotlin is handled by looking in here, seeing, yes, there you are, Kotlin JVM. We can not delete it, turns out, but fix that way, and then Kotlin fix that way. Check it's all good. And I think that's enough for a winter afternoon. One more amend. Good. Well, we're obviously not finished. We've only moved some of our domain from app into domain, and we haven't yet created anywhere for DBItems to live. But I think this is promising. So next week we'll continue to tease apart our app. Hopefully we'll find that our package discipline has been such that that's quite easy. And we'll also look at how we can share build configuration with a Gradle convention plugin. As videos on Gradle by Duncan go, I think you'll agree this has been quite smooth. So please reward me with a like. If you want to see more of this, then subscribe to the channel. And you can support my work by buying a copy of the book that I wrote in that price called Java to Kotlin, a Refactoring Guidebook, details of which are in the show notes below. Thanks for watching.